Now we move on to Asia. China has urged the European Union to stop provoking trouble in the South China Sea, following a visit by the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas to the Philippines. The Chinese embassy in Manila criticized the EU for interfering in the disputed waterway, emphasizing that the bloc has no right to intervene. China also advised the Philippines to avoid relying on external forces to resolve disputes, urging Manila to return dialogue and consultation with Beijing. The EU and the Philippines have jointly expressed concern over China's activities in the South China Sea, calling them illegal and coercive. China claims sovereignty over nearly the entire South China Sea, including areas within the exclusive economic zones of several Southeast Asian nations. This comes after the EU and the Philippines agreed to initiate talks on defense and security to tackle cyber attacks, foreign interference, and ensure regional stability. During the meeting, Kaja Kallas emphasized the EU's commitment to addressing concerns in the South China Sea. Now we have Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist. He's joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you for joining us today. How might recent EU-Philippines security talks impact the geopolitical balance in the South China Sea?
South China Sea is no ordinary theater for geopolitics. If you look at the South China Sea, the importance to China is overwhelming. Not only as it represents contested areas or territories of sovereignty, but it is also a existential conduit for external trade on which China heavily depends. Not only trade, but also import of raw materials, goods, and also foodstuff and energy resources, on which the almost entirety of China's economy and the livelihood of its people depend. Now, the second reason why the South China Sea is important is because, again, apart from the disputed territories with a lot of neighbors, it is used by the United States as a theater to contain and to box China in. And if you look at the American assets in the South China Sea, you will see that there are two so-called island chains. And there is first of all, the first island chain centered on Okinawa with a lot of American assets and airplanes and also battleships, but also the second island chain centered in Guam. Again, different American assets. So if you look at the map, this is the United States encirclement of China. And again, as I just said, the South China Sea is an important conduit for the economy, for the livelihood of its people. And that's why you can understand the strength of China's defense of its interests. Now, looking about the contested territories, you've got to go back a long, long time. And even though the claimants, different claimants, even though there's certain islands or certain areas which they consider their own, apart from China, they are really involved some sort of unilateral action, maybe decades ago, when no one cared about these islands or territories. But now the situation is pushed to the fore. Now, the third dimension we have to understand is that the relationship between the Philippines and China is shifting and changing depending on different Philippine government. The current government is very anti-China and pro the United States, but the previous government, the third, is the other way around. And then the government before then third, again, is anti-China. And then if you go back further, the previous government, the fourth government before now, is also pro-China. So I think that the Philippines relationship is chopping and changing, but at the moment they're aligning the Philippines' territorial interests with the United States containment of China, along with American allies, for example, the Quad, including India and Australia and then Japan. So you can see that a very problematic area which can lend itself to escalation, and that's why in the ASEAN countries, most of the ASEAN countries, Singapore and the Malaysia, Indonesia, some of them have also have territorial disputes, but they prefer to deal with them through diplomacy and through developing the so-called conduct, the the code of conduct for navigations in the South China Sea. Now, the code of conduct is still being negotiated, but there's some progress has been made. But it's much better than confrontation, because confrontation has a tendency for escalation. And of course, China's interest in the South China Sea is not only territory, not only trade, but also the situation in Taiwan. And the Taiwan situation, now led by a pro-independence leader, backed by the United States, is again adds to the instability. So I think that it behoves all countries to deal with this, not in isolation, but in a broader context, and to seek a method which is more amenable to maintaining stability, and rather than hyping the rhetoric, which can lead to a security spiral, which could well result in unwanted wars or unwanted consequences.
Thank you very much, Andrew K.P. Leung, for joining us today and sharing that insight. Well, that's all we have time for.